Yes, so I am Professor Nadia Hodge. I started at Wellesley in fall 2011, and I've been here now almost 7 years, and I teach classes in peace and justice studies and political science. Most of my classes, my introductory level classes, are the introduction to comparative politics and an introductory class to politics of the Middle East. And then my upper level classes tend to focus on kind of specializations within those disciplines. So I teach a Palestinian-Israeli peace prospects class, women, gender, and Islam, and a political economy class.
Sure, okay, so my name is Alex Diesel. I've been teaching at Wellesley. I'm just finishing up 9 years now.
Okay.
And in the math department, we teach really across the curriculum. So math department is a little bit different in the sense that although we all have our own specialties, most of the undergraduate curriculum is sort of canonical for most people with PhDs. So we tend to teach all the way across the curriculum set.
Kilo Wirapana. I have been teaching at Wellesley since the fall of 1999, so that's a long time. Don't tell me that was before you were born, because I don't want to hear it. I teach in economics.
Okay. And what is your favorite class to teach?
That is a tough question. That's like asking which of my children is my favorite. So it's whatever I'm teaching at the moment. I teach 4 or 5 different classes, and I actually do not have favorites amongst them.
Okay. Did you know you wanted to be a college professor? How did you get into this?
No, I did not want to be. I did not know that. I went to graduate school because I wanted to be an economist at the IMF. But when you're in graduate school, one of the things that you do is you teach as part of your way of paying for your degree, so to speak. I found out that I enjoyed doing it. That was sort of probably my 3rd or 4th year of graduate school. And then I had gone to liberal arts college, so I knew if I was going to be a teacher, I would want to teach at a liberal arts college, small school. I basically had a job offer from the IMF, but then decided to come to Wellesley. I had decided that when I went on the job market, I had my offer from the IMF, but I decided that if I got an offer from Wellesley, I would go there. Otherwise, I would go to the IMF. So it worked out.
I did not know that I wanted to be a professor. I grew up in a house, so my mom is a teacher, or a retired teacher. She has taught everything from preschool, kindergarten, all the way to 12th grade. She's been a vice principal, a principal, and a reading teacher, like a specialized reading teacher. And she retired as a principal after many, many years. And she'd worked both kind of domestically in the United States as well as internationally at schools in the Middle East. And I knew how hard it was to be a teacher, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Especially younger children, it didn't seem like the best fit for me. And initially I was really interested in biology and the sciences when I was growing up, and so my first career dream was to be a 911 operator.
Yeah, teaching has become very much, I think, who I am, right?
Yeah.
It's the way I think about lots of things in terms of like these sorts of interactions with people and trying to be able to explain things well and whatnot. Yeah.
Well, why did you say that probably more than you think you should?
Well, I mean, it's not more than I think I should. I just feel like every time I am interacting, like when I talk to my kids, for instance, right? It's like a part of me is always thinking about the teacher side of things, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe for better,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Do you see yourself as a teacher?
Yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely. That is my central identity.
Okay. And what does that mean to you, especially here?
So, I mean, I think it's different for different faculty members at Wellesley. Wellesley, there are a lot of schools that say that they take sort of teaching and research seriously, but I think Wellesley is one of the handful that can really say that. And I think that if you think about Wellesley faculty, we all do both and have to do both. But I think everybody has their own identity along that spectrum, right? So some faculty will say that they are researchers who enjoy teaching, and other faculty will think of themselves as teachers who enjoy doing research. But so for me, what that means is, that sort of when I engage with economics, I'm always thinking about it, not necessarily, and part of this reflects my own distribution of abilities. I don't read economics articles thinking about how I could contribute to that literature as much as I think about it in terms of how do I take what I just read and communicate it to my students. So I think that's sort of the way that the spectrum works. I think there are other faculty who will read about something in the news and go like, oh, I know, I could write a paper, that pushes this argument, in that direction, And for me, that's not the primary way I connect with my subject. I connect with my subject, I read something and I go like, oh, how do I use this? How can I take this and convey it to my to my students? So I think we're all interested in research, but in different ways as producers, consumers, of research.
So master-based learning. So this is something that some of us in the math department have been experimenting with, which is the idea that rather than grading a student based on the average of performance on a few exams, you offer them the opportunity to sort of divide the course. I mean, there are lots of ways to implement it, but you divide the course roughly into a number of sort of skill areas or topic areas or content areas, and then you allow the students to be tested in these areas multiple times. Really, so the point is not just your grade over the average of a sample of 3 separate days. It's really, I would like to know how far you can go towards mastery of a particular set of skills or concepts or topics. And so there are still discrete examinations, that happen, but on every examination, the way that we did it in calculus is on every examination the students were able to try to achieve mastery on the things that we had learned, including anything from previous exams. So they got second, third, and sometimes fourth chances to try to achieve additional learning, and sort of demonstrate that they hit them. Which I think was the nicest thing about this, I think, is that it really drove home the point that nothing is ever done. Learning is never completed. I mean, actually, to be honest, the word mastery is the one part of this I think that I take issue with, because learning is really like an ongoing process. You never really learn everything. You never really master something all the way, So, but it's a way of, I think, reminding people in a very real way that if you don't understand something, you just keep engaging with it. And sometimes you have to really keep engaging, even past the point where it seems like you've plateaued, and then maybe you'll make a breakthrough.
I'm not an oracle, and I'm not, I don't have all the answers, but I look at my job as being someone to help give students the tools to answer the questions they care about. And we're going to learn about it in the context of, comparative politics or politics of the Middle East, but, and I'm going to teach you kind of how to think, not what is right to think.
Something we talked about a little bit in the classroom is kind of authority in the classroom.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And have you thought about that, or thought about yourself as an authority figure?
Yes, I have. It's funny, actually, I make this comment a lot in math classes, because I feel we think about Wellesley College, let's just think about Wellesley College students. So Wellesley College students have the capacity, to be extremely independent and to learn a lot, and be very successful. I mean, I think this I think this feeling does cause stress for students a lot, because it feels like the expectations are quite high. But honestly, the students come in here and they're prepared to really take things and run. That said, when they get in the classroom, sometimes I think that Wells' students do default sometimes. I don't know if this is true in all disciplines, but especially in mathematics, which feels like a very authority-driven kind of subject. Like, I know the math, and you don't know the math, right? And I'm here to deliver this to you. So the point that I make all the time actually to students, I do not know to the degree that it is received, is that mathematics, I feel like, is one of the most sort of democratic, non-authority-driven disciplines, because nothing has to be taken on faith, right? Like the bedrock of mathematics is mathematical proof, right? Which is based on sort of logic. And so when students will say like, oh, like, is this proof correct, or did I do the right thing? I'd like to remind them, like, you don't actually need to. It doesn't matter what I think. It really doesn't matter what I think, right? Because it's true if it's true, and you should not only be able to tell me what's true, but know if you're correct or not, right? And I do try to remind them that even though I'm evaluating them and kind of guiding them for 13 weeks, then I'm gone, right? And then like they're going to be out in the world, making these decisions for themselves.
I not like that you've skipped 4 or 5 classes, or that you're not turning in assignments. But I don't let my arrogance and kind of authority that all I am is here to teach you 2 + 2 = 4, to cloud my ability to be a source of stability and strength for that student. I'm not trained as a mental health expert, but I have maybe 18 years on you, and I can at least point you to the resources to get you help. And I also want it to be that you feel like it's okay, you can come to me and say, I am in distress, I am in trouble. And I think that has a lot to do with the way in which you cultivate authority into the classroom translates to interactions out of the classroom. I found that as I shifted away from a model of trying to control the classroom, control every aspect in lecture, where I allow there to be flexibility in discussion, that translates to increasingly kind of more authentic, real discussions with students outside of the classroom. And I've also found that I learn about their interests in ways that it kind of becomes a virtuous cycle or virtuous circle. Those richer interactions in the classroom mean that I can tap into people's different interests, bring articles or discussions that interest them. And it also means outside of the class, in office hours, or when I see people on campus, there's other ways I can connect to them. And I'm not trying to be someone's mom, I'm not trying to be someone's sister, nor am I trying to be their friend. I'm definitely none of those things. So I'm in this kind of gray space, and it's okay for there to be a little grayness there, that I'm not your mom or your dad, and I hope at least that those types of connections that I foster in the classroom would mean that some of these mental health issues that I see pervasive on Wellesley's campus too, that we can kind of nip them in the bud, or at least get a student help before really terrible things happen.
So, no, I think about this a lot, because I really do think that students have a lot of capacity at this college to do independent work, right, and to really see themselves as independent creators. And so try to sort of like encourage them in that direction as much as possible, even when they're in the classroom. And it seems like, because my classroom, right, the way it's constructed, there's like desks and people sit down and I stand, right? It feels very very authoritarian, right?
It does, yeah.
That said, I sort of sense that among small liberal arts colleges, Wellesley feels more siloed in some sense than others. Like there's like the place where students live, and then there's like the place they do science, and the place that they do humanities, and the place they do social science. And it feels like these things don't mix as often or as well as maybe they should. And so I'm like always interested in events that mix students and faculty in kind of a non-academic setting. Because I feel like students, they come into this building and they sort of are ready to do science. They come to my office and they're ready to talk about science. Right? I would like to sometimes talk to them about like any old thing, right? But I think somehow just even the way that the buildings are organized, and it subtly trains people to like, you come into this building to be ready to do business, the business of science. Then you go into this other building to do the business of humanities, right? And I do think that these kind of like, these sort of incidental low stakes conversations that could occur in other neutral spaces are missing. And I think those could be really beneficial to faculty and students seeing each other, I don't know, just in other non-standard ways, and developing other connections that aren't just like, I'm the professor and you're the student and I'm teaching and you're learning. Yeah.
You know, with regard to questions we care about or an individual student may care about. And I try to make it interesting to them by selecting a variety of cases from different parts of the world. I try to bring in news articles into class so that it's not some abstract theory that we're talking about, but it's a real thing and we're using theory and really good, you know, analysis and critical thinking to answer questions and problems that are pervasive today.
Yeah, I guess so. It kind of depends, right? I mean, I guess broadly speaking, I think that the hardest thing to do in the classroom, the thing where an experienced teacher is most useful, is that you have a whole bunch of students, and they're all in different places, right? And not only are they all in different places, but every single one of them, I think, in any given day, can be pushed a certain amount and not more in some sense, right? Like there's this distribution of experiences, and there's this distribution of, even in the moment, kind of readiness to be pushed outside of their comfort zone to some degree, right? And so what I've sort of come to understand is that you have to do the best you can to figure out where everybody is in a particular moment and how far you can push someone. Because you want to find the boundary between what they can do and what they can't do, and sort of start to see how far you can push them over that boundary. And sometimes for a given person, they're really ready and they can do a lot. Other days, they're just not ready for anything, right? And that just, everybody ebbs and flows, right? And so providing that kind of environment where people can challenge themselves in productive ways, right? And be able to push themselves out of their comfort zone, and have the right amount of safety net for them in that moment. And this is hard, right? And it's hard. It's even hard if you're just talking to somebody one-on-one, right? But when you have a class of 30 people, it becomes much more difficult. But this is why people train to do this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think sometimes traditionally in academia, arrogance and authority kind of go hand in hand, unfortunately. Maybe Wellesley is somewhat of an exception to that. I don't mean to paint all professors here in that way, but that is certainly the case in other institutions I've been at. And so to me, I find that I try to develop a mix of, you know, having clear rules. Like I do have clear boundaries. Like I have a very clear grading scheme. I try to be incredibly transparent in how I test, in the assignments, in the keywords. So I do try to make things incredibly transparent and clear. But I also think it's helpful that students can feel empowered to ask questions, to be wrong, so that they can learn. And that's the type of, you know, authority I try to cultivate, that I'm there to help them learn, not to kind of tell them what is important to learn. It's not just about like how students are learning. I think it also breeds the type of trust and environment that makes a student succeed, not just in grades or performance, but succeed as like a human, an adult, learning to become fully themselves at college.